Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
Hi.
Hi, and how do you too? This is Norman Bolter. I'm Dr. Carol Vieira. We have some questions from the students in the trombone studio at Duquesne University, and we would like to try to answer some of those for them. Right?
Definitely.
Okay, so the first question we have here is from Will Dorsey. He's a second-year master's student, and he says, do you have any tips for simply holding the trombone and playing it with the least amount of tension possible? This is something I try to think about every day, and I'm curious as to your ideas.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is if you're thinking about it every day, then you must have some tension when you hold the trombone. I know that might sound obvious, but I'm just trying to. Why would someone be thinking about it every day? To me, I'd have to ask if you were in front of me, I'd have to see how you're holding the trombone um, in relationship to your left hand and the slide arm, the position of your shoulders, if they're too high, if they're too back. I mean, I'd have to see where the balances are in that person. I mean, a lot of times tension appears in different places. There's a lot of trombonists that really start hurting their neck from pressure. They start hurting their whole holding of the trombone. You can almost sometimes get a carpal tunnel type situation from
like
it.
The overuse thing.
And depending on how big and small your hands are, that can also make a difference from how you're holding the trombone and where you fit the F attachment in. I've seen people get this other little thing coming out where they rest their horn differently. So
yeah, some adaptive equipment.
Some adaptive equipment, exactly. So unless I saw you, it would really be difficult maybe to give some ideas. Because let's face it, if we want to move the slide freely, okay, we need to put the majority of the weight in the left hand. And sometimes, depending on how heavy someone's F attachment is, or the horn in general, some people have these very heavyweight bells, some people have heavy Thayer valves, and that can start to get very heavy for a person. So if that's the situation that you're talking about, which it might not be, it might be other tensions in the shoulders, I would suggest when you're warming up that maybe you do some pre-things to relax some of your muscles. Moving your hands like this, for example. I do that. I'll go like this, okay? I'll take each finger and put them all the way as far as I can to the bottom of the palm. So my thumb won't go all the way to the bottom, but might go like this, as far as I can to stretch that. And I'll do a teeth hand. I'll do something like that, and you'll hear the famous crunch. But that can, or even moving joints like this, like this, like this, like this, and rest in between. Shoulder rolls, I found for me, can be very, very good. And you just forward, back, up, hold, down, and let it really relax. And then I'll actually go like this. I'll actually give myself a little massage if I feel something. I can feel some tension back in the neck, like that, the upper shoulders. I'll rub it, and you can feel the pain of it. Some people actually will go and actually get professional massages of one kind or another, which I think can help. But that's just a little bit off the top of my head without really being able to see it. But it is an issue a lot of people get into, especially depending if your juries are coming up, or hard auditions, or certain maybe a little more anxious performing situations. Sometimes that can increase the pressure of how someone's holding too.
Right. Well, I'd like to underscore what you said in the very beginning, which is that if you're thinking about it every day, that you are very conscious of having the tension. Right. So Norman obviously gave you many excellent ideas and suggestions, and specific ones. But it's also the case that you might want to consider the tension that you have before you even start. Not necessarily the tension that you get all of a sudden notice when you're playing. You might want to just stop and just assess where you're at in terms of tension. I mean, you do get tension just thinking about playing or thinking about maybe you're preparing excerpts for an audition. I don't know what it is. Does it happen all the time? Or is it something that actually you get triggered and then you find yourself in that position, so you're actually going into picking up the instrument in a tense position? So you might want to just do a body scan in the very beginning. Take a deep breath. See where you're at. Can you make yourself or help yourself get into a more relaxed position before you even begin? Get yourself grounded. Get yourself breathing. And notice your breathing. Is your breathing regular? Is your breathing relaxed? Or is your breathing already tense? So, and also like Norma said, if we see somebody, each of us see somebody individually, you can target it better. You can kind of pick up what specifically might be going on with them. But these are some suggestions that might have more general application for the situation. But there's so much else you can think about. It's kind of really big, and it says something to me about the tension that is so rampant with everybody right now anyway, whether you play trombone or not, and how aware we are of it ahead of it getting to be painful and really interfere with our performance, whatever that might be, playing an instrument or doing anything. So and being more aware of that and dealing with it will also help you to get a handle on or to kind of preempt more long-term injuries or more long-term, problems in the neck and shoulder and the whatever that players can develop. Okay.
Yeah, and the trombone can be an awkward instrument to hold.
Yeah.
And some people, like I said, it's very awkward, and they develop different tensions and different situations where I knew someone once that they actually had to stop holding the trombone. Remember her?
Yeah.
She had to stop holding the trombone. She had a special stand built. It was almost like a camera stand. And she put her trombone on it in a certain way and would hold the bell section up, and she was just free to kind of move the trigger and move her slide.
Right.
And she'd play concerts like that. Now that's a rare situation, but when people really want to do something, they go a long distance. Now I'm not saying that's your situation at all, but I do think there are exercises that will help you probably get rid of your tension and develop maybe some extra strength in the arms so that holding the trombone doesn't even seem as hard. But a lot of times it comes from this kind of feeling. The hole in this, in the wrists and the hands, and again, in the neck.
Yeah. And again, being able to make the assessment with the individual, specifically seeing the individual, whether it's in person, on Skype, or what other way we work, or someone else might work, can help target that better. And because in some situations, look, you might need physical therapy. I mean, if it's this big of a concern to you, I wonder how advanced it's gotten with you, or if it's just something that you're just trying to relax, and maybe relaxation in general is something you'd want to work on as a lifestyle intervention too. So hopefully that's useful, something in there. All right, so the second question, also from Will Dorsey. What ideas do you have for students who are taking auditions? Any tips for staying calm and playing as well as you do in the practice room during the audition? Could I say something about that?
Absolutely.
One of the first things that catches me about the question is that you say that you want to be as calm playing, in an audition as in a practice room, and so that's kind of an unusual way to put it. I hear this kind of thing. People wanting to be relaxed in an audition all the time, and each of us do a lot of work with that. But it's interesting that you say you want to be as relaxed in that situation as you are in a practice room. do you expect to be
and playing as well
and playing as well, but
room.
but the whole idea of being able to
Right.
do the same. But thank you for making that. Do you expect to feel the same when you walk outside your door as you do in your apartment or your house or whatever? Probably not. But you have come to adjust to that, right? And why is that? Because you've learned some kind of projection. Okay, I'm now leaving the house. So I'm not leaving in the house, without being dressed and without being ready to face whatever I'm going to face out there. If you live in a city, at least you're going to school in the city. So that's an urban environment. You're not just going to walk out the door and think, okay, this is just like, when I was sitting at the kitchen table eating. Okay, or even playing in your apartment is kind of this, or in the practice room is the same thing. That you want to have a little projection that you're going into a different situation. Okay, just like you do probably for performances already. You're going into a class, but you might feel a little more comfortable in those situations. There's so many things that can be said about the audition situation that is unique, and there's so much put on it. So the collective mindset around that is extremely heavy and extremely pressured. So you're walking into the fog of that, stress of everybody's collective situation. And another thing I say to people, it's like, okay, you're also going to play for an audience that at least some of those people don't want to be there, if not most of them. And that's not something that you have when you go into a concert situation or you're in a practice room. You're not playing for an audience that's being very, very specific about analyzing. I don't want to say judging, but they are judging your performance. And at least some of those people don't even want to be there doing it. So that's the acoustic you're playing into. So one of the things that I always like to do when I'm working with people on auditions is that part of what we work on is to actually practice. Like you're coming from backstage, that you're walking out on stage, that you have the screen up, that you're visualizing and actually walking through, even though you don't have the stage and the screen and all that, but you're imagining it and you're physically maybe coming from another room and going out to where the stand is, and you are actually then starting your excerpt then. Not just walk up to the stand, I'm in the practice room, boy, this feels great in there. You're actually practicing that you're going into another ecology and another acoustic. And again, based on whoever the individual is I'm working with, we work on how that might best happen for you. And one of the things is creating your own environment, creating your own habitat on that stage that you walk into, that you feel safe in. Because one of the things that this is telling me, the way you say it is, that you feel safe and comfortable playing in a practice room, but you don't feel safe playing on stage in an audition. So, well, how do you create that same sense of feeling safe? Because that's why you're comfortable. If you felt safe out there, you'd be comfortable on the stage too in an audition. But again, you're tapping into the whole collective mental state for how long have auditions been going on in the world, and particular excerpts that carry certain things too. And depending on how the list is set up, you're going to see that list, but you're not going to have that list when you're in your practice room. You're going to know what's on the list. You're not going to know what they're going to give you, the order, So, you want to do all those kinds of things in your actual preparation that reflects what you're walking into and becoming more comfortable with that, or at least familiar with it. Familiar in your mind. Okay, I can expect this, I can expect that, and I'm going to approach it in this way. And then also, the more auditions you take, and the more you have practiced this way versus practice, oh, I feel unsafe again. Oh, this feels terrible. Because you're basically caught off guard. When you go outside your house, you're not caught off guard unless something unusual happens. But the basic goings on of the day, walking down the street, catching a bus or driving, whatever you do, you basically know the script, right? So you want to practice that, what you know will basically be the script. So you're not going in cold and being blindsided by a situation that you could have practiced a little bit ahead of time and felt a little more comfortable with. And also having, that, again, that awareness. Part of what I'm feeling isn't my tension. It's the collective tension. And distinguishing that a little bit. Okay? So that's a few things that I say. You know, you can go on about this one for a long, forever.
And I'm sure that Mr. Nova is helping people take kind of what they call, you know, the mock auditions.
Yes.
And so where you can at least play in front of your colleagues, even if they're behind a screen. And I'll tell you, that's harder
yes.
than a lot of professional auditions.
Right.
Okay, playing in front of your peers.
Yeah.
And so I think you hit on something great, Dr. V, which is the more that you take auditions, the more that you will try to figure out what you need. And there'll be places that, I mean, we have people call us all the time, and, you know, we Skype with people, helping them with this and that and other, and Dr. V does that a lot, specifically. And, of course, people are going to ask me that question, too. I think it's very individual. People get it into such a science where they know what they can eat, what they can't eat.
Yes. Yeah.
And they know how to warm up for something. But I will throw another thing into this audition process, is that sometimes play when you're not feeling that great. In other words, have spontaneous auditions, like get together with some of your classmates and say, you know what, every week we're going to have this audition for each other, or twice a week. And you know what, you'll realize it's not going to be the same. And yes, you'll start to maybe feel a little bit more comfortable playing with them. So invite some flutists, some cellists, some oboists who will really wonder, like, about things that a lot of times trombonists don't.
Right.
And very good things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the power part of it, okay? But in terms of pitch, you know, stability of sound, all sorts of things, any instrumentalist can hear that. So I benefited greatly playing for other instrument groups.
All right. Yeah.
So that's a teeny bit of it.
Right.
That's a huge subject.
Right.
That,
even talking about, you know, what the food you eat and all those other things, that you really need to work with the individual person to kind of get into that. It's only so much you can get into with what we're doing now, but to just give you a sampling and give you an idea of what is possible, what you can explore, and how you can make the situation, how you can make yourself more resilient in a situation that is stressful. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So
there's another one.
Yes. This is also from Will Dorsey. And he said, coming into the BSO at such a young age must have been daunting. How did you learn so much music so quickly at such a young age?
Everyone has a different experience. Okay?
Yeah. Not
everybody's the same. And I wanted to be in an orchestra professionally when I was 10. So my mind was set on that. I was playing in youth orchestras. I got into a national youth orchestra for 3 years in high school. We played in Carnegie Hall. I went to Tanglewood. But I also, I'll tell you, played in my high school and junior high school and elementary school bands and orchestras. So I was always engaged in the performance process of being in an orchestra, and always listening to the literature and going to concerts and building a personal relationship with that music.
Right.
And and like I said, everyone's journey is different. Mine was probably pretty fast compared to maybe most people. But there's reasons for that. And not everyone has to be at the same place at the same time. So when I got into the BSO, I actually wasn't daunted. I was actually playing professionally for 2 years before that in the Boston Ballet and the Boston Opera Company. I was principal trombone, and I was playing in a really great orchestra in Massachusetts called the Springfield Symphony, where people like Mark Gould were playing first trumpet and Dave Jolly playing first horn. So, and then I was in a Cambridge Brass Quintet and Empire Brass Quintet eventually after that. So I was doing a lot of playing. So it wasn't just like right out of high school, here you are on the Symphony Hall stage with Seiji Ozawa in front of me. It wasn't that. It was 2 years after that. But I'd had a lot of experience, and I had geared myself.
Right.
I'd projected.
Right.
And this is an interesting thing tying into the audition process about projection. From age 10, I was projecting myself.
Right.
So it wasn't daunting. I was there willing, wanting, throw it at me, baby, kind of idea. Now, honestly, that is not to say that I didn't have this is a bit daunting times. Okay? When the TV camera flashes in front of your face for the first time, or you realize you're playing your couple of notes solo and it's live on the radio. Then we had evening at Symphony and evening at Pops. Those used to get a little rough. And sometimes, let's face it, you're a living, breathing person in this cultural world, right? You're going to have ups and downs.
Yeah.
Some days you might have a headache. Some days you might have a zit on your lip. And they don't care. You still have to play.
Right. Right.
So it's how to actually, through experience, deal with some of these situations. And I experience nerves, without a doubt. You know, certain things I used to get very up kind of like this about. Not because I didn't want to do it. It's just because of sometimes certain conditions cause that in people, whether it's, you know, a lot of other stresses in one's life going on, physical or emotional. I mean, do you wake up and feel the same every day?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
So not every concert is going to be the same.
Right. Right.
And so that was to do with this.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to say one thing, and then I wanted to ask you something else about that. And one of the things I wanted to say in line of what you're saying is, at this point in your life, if you're a second-year master's student, you have faced daunting situations. And being a second-year master's student, I would say, in itself can be a daunting situation. How do you handle other daunting situations? What skills have you developed? Because you certainly have at this point in your life. How do you handle that, and how do you still make it happen? How do you still show up? And you look at that, and it's a way of assessing your strengths that maybe you don't even realize you have, and realizing it can apply to any other situation too. You just need to integrate it and, like you say, project. But I wanted to also underscore that he says, how did you learn so much music so quickly?
Right. I was kind of folding that into...
Right, because, you know, I mean, you think about something like Tanglewood even, the amount of, you know, literature.
Because I was used to learning a lot of literature quickly in school, and then I had my own desires that went beyond any, you know, school orchestra I was in. So I was always making sure I knew the big trombone excerpts and then some, you know, before I was a freshman in college. So I'm just saying that might not everyone's journey, but the more that you can build your love and the inspiration that excites you about being in music anyway, I just loved it. I mean, it was that and a couple other things were what I really loved the most to do. So I wanted to learn as much as I could literature-wise. So, and I became a good sight reader. Nowadays, a lot of auditions don't require sight reading, but they did when I was younger. And so I would suggest that you do some sight reading exercises. Okay? I actually wrote a book on sight reading exercises. Right. Well, a book that has sight reading exercises in it. And it's called Reading at the Speed of Sight. Right. And it's not that easy. No, it isn't. But it's not meant to be. But there's parts, I think, that most people could play in it. But you are bringing up a good point. A professional situation, the BSO, even though I was doing so much playing, and as a freelancer, and I freelanced a lot too for those couple years, you have to do a lot of reading in a lot of varied circumstances. Okay? One thing about being in an orchestra, or many orchestras throughout the country, even big regional orchestras that are terrific, that aren't necessarily called full-time, they have their schedules in advance. So you can look at the program and say, I can learn this ahead of time.
Right.
And listen to it ahead of time. Please do that. Because sometimes students forget that thing called preparation.
Yes.
If you have a heads up about something, go for it.
Right.
And the more prepared that you feel, the less daunting certain things will be. And I think that's part of what even, what Dr. V and myself have been talking about, even in the first 3 questions, and about, for example, the audition, their tension. There's a certain projection ahead of time. And preparing for certain things. So we're just not all shocked. And now, someone touches a button on a computer and there's so many things really at a certain level that can help a person. We have our own unique ways of moving into those territories, which are very useful for some people.
Right.
So,
but I want to say one more thing, and then we're probably going to have to end this one, and we'll do another one, is that you mentioned it just now, and I know it for a fact, having witnessed it, is that your love of the playing and love of music has been in your inspiration, how it inspires you and has inspired you, has gone a long way in preparing for a professional musician's life. It's a really challenging and difficult career.
It's a high maintenance job
that you've picked. But stop and think about your love about it. Think about your love of the music, your love of playing, and try to stop yourself up when you feel you get caught into the daunting part of it, and have that sentiment that you do not want to let anything get between you and that love of the music and your connection to that music that inspires you and motivates you, because there will be nothing more motivating and inspiring to learn all that literature and everything else that goes with it than that love. So I would encourage that. And I hope this has helped you, Will, and anyone else who might be listening, and we will make another video to answer some of the other questions that came from Trombone Studio at Duquesne. So bye for now.